on earth he is as we bring in the voice of the Cal Bears, Justin Allegri. Justin, thanks for hopping on. Do you know where you are right now? I guess is question one. Have you figured out where you are and what sport you have going on at the moment?
Oh, yeah. So we were in, North Carolina on Wednesday evening, Thursday, and then Friday. Got back about 4:30 California time. Flew out to Nashville on Monday, and we'll play here tonight, which is 7 o'clock Central Time. Come home for the Syracuse game, and then the next morning I'm down in L.A. to call USC Cal basketball. So, yeah, crossover season is always the most fun.
Yeah, and I imagine even more so now with the new league and the travel and all that. That's kind of wild. You guys are at Vandy today. That's an ambitious trip considering all the travel you guys are going to have now with the ACC.
Yeah, well, when the coaching staff took over last year, still in the Pac-12, there were some coaching ties to the then ACC or the then Vanderbilt coaching staff. So they say, hey, let's have some fun. Let's get an ACC or a Pac-12 SEC game going. Still kind of getting used to that. But looking back now, a little bit more travel is probably not the best idea in the non-conference.
The Cal and Stanford planes have been traversing the country all over the map. So let's rewind here, I guess, slightly less than a week and another time zone to your east. You're in Winston-Salem last Friday night, and Cal gets on the board, Justin. First ACC win. Take us back to last Friday and what finally clicked in for the Bears to get that win.
I think just the execution in the fourth quarter was the biggest difference. Obviously, hitting your field goals. I mean, the Bears had 4 losses in the ACC. One, you had a 25-point lead at home, which is inexcusable to give that up against Miami, but it happened. 2 games that were lost just because you couldn't kick a field goal. One was a 28-yarder to win the game, and those are inexcusable. And then the only other game was a win that Florida State has, which is their only win of the year. So the Bears needed one. They did. And getting it on the road to Wake Forest, I think the biggest difference was the special teams executed. There were still some penalties, which has been a problem for this team throughout the course of the season and been a costly problem at several moments of the year. So that was still something that is a concern. But to me, the fourth quarter, they were able to move the ball a little bit on offense, keep the possession long enough, and not allow for that big comeback.
I mean, you mentioned some of the losses there. I mean, the Miami one certainly sticks out as one. Like, how did that get away? But 4 losses by a combined 9 points. How has the team mentally handled that? Because that could kill you, right?
Yeah,
When you look at some of these teams, when you're like, how, why? How have they battled through that through the season?
Well, and it's different for each game, right? You go to Florida State, and at that time, Florida State, you still didn't really have a gauge on them. It was kind of like, all right, when are they going to turn it on? This roster is really, really good. When are they going to turn it on? But now we see in hindsight that is a game that the Bears are going to look back and say, gosh, we had a real chance to win that game. Didn't kick your field goals in that game. Bottom line, they were driving down to try and score a touchdown to go ahead rather than kick a field goal to win the game late in that one. And then the Miami game, like you talk about, you can't give Cam Ward too many opportunities to come back in a football game. And there just was not enough juice on offense in that fourth quarter to keep the ball, keep the clock running, and limit the amount of possessions that Ward had with that Miami team. You're right. And then there's 2 field goals that were missed. So this team looked at each one of those games and said, well, it's a gut punch after a gut punch after a gut punch, and went into the bye week knowing that they tried to try to reset because there's still an opportunity on the table to get yourself bowl eligible. There's still a late push in the season that you could have. But I think the mentality from some of the leaders were just like, look, we can't look back. We can't say what if right now. What if? It's not going to help us. It's not going to help the mentality of the team. We just have to keep moving forward. It sounds cliche, but that's what you have to do when you have these tough losses.
Yeah, and you get the win last week against Wake Forest. Did you notice that, doing that for the team, of just giving them the boost here to drive toward those things here over the last few weeks?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this was a team last year that won several games in November, too, to get themselves bowl eligible. So they knew it's a possibility, and they felt as though they haven't played their best football yet. And you talk to a lot of the players this week, they still say, we haven't put 4 quarters together yet to see what this team really looks like. So they're excited about maybe doing that. And the key for me about that Wake Forest game was that you got 2 receivers that you brought in to catch the football from Ohio State and Keon Grays and from Notre Dame and Tobias Merriweather, had those guys for the first time all season. So what can they do in terms of impact in the next couple of weeks, getting more reps, getting more snaps, because they were limited last week. Hopefully they can get more healthy and they can see more time on the field. And who knows, maybe that pushes you over the edge a little bit on offense.
Not ideal from a Syracuse perspective because every orange cornerback is currently hurt. I do believe. At least it seems to be the case on the top of the depth chart here in the last few weeks. We got the voice of the Cal Bears with us. He is Justin Allegri. He's in Nashville getting ready for some hoops tonight. Cal and Vandy. All right, so your first tour around the ACC. You've seen Miami. You'll see SMU in a few weeks. What have you made of this league? Because there's been a lot of head scratchers. What's going on here in the ACC?
It's tough to get a read on a lot of these teams. I think we kind of knew that the Miamis of the world were going to be pretty good. I haven't seen Clemson this year in person, but obviously they're a good team. SMU, I thought, is kind of a surprise, especially early. It didn't look like they were going to have as strong of a start as they did, and they're one of the best teams in the country right now. So, yeah, I see a lot of good, diverse teams. I think there's a couple of good teams that carry some solid defenses, and for the most part, it's the offense that's carried a lot of this ACC season, and some big-time names at the quarterback position on top of that. Syracuse has one of them, obviously, but it's been fun to see that. And, it's hard to get a gauge because every year now it seems like, even if you've covered a conference for 10 years, the way that the rosters just get reconstructed every season, you could look at a team from last year and say, gosh, they're going to bring back X, Y, and Z, and this is going to be really difficult. And then all of a sudden, well, they're not bringing back anybody. So it's almost like you have to kind of reset every year. And, obviously this is the first run through, so we're learning the ACC, and who knows what it'll look like next year.
Yeah, I'd say in this age of the transfer portal, Justin, when I get like those preseason ballots for the leagues and stuff, I just stare at it and blink. Like, who are these people? Like, I know them. Wait, that's not the team they were on last year. It's a mess when you're trying. You got to
keep that ballot, and then at the end of the year, just laugh at the comparison when you're so wrong, right?
Exactly. That's why take those with a grain of salt, anybody out there, because the people that do those may do them quicker and quicker and quicker by the year, because you just have no idea what's going on. Here's a very random question for you, Justin. I've had multiple of our listeners and viewers here in the last few days tell me this. Apparently there's a billboard here in Syracuse on one of our highways that is advertising Cal football, and it says, "Why not Cal?" Is this a thing? Has Cal come into all the ACC towns? Do you have any idea what's going on?
It is very much a thing. When Cal entered the ACC, one of the questions that Cal got a lot of was not necessarily where is Cal, obviously in California, but where is the school located in the state of California? And so the answer from the marketing staff, and this was, I think, generated mostly by football, was, well, let's introduce them. How are we going to introduce them? Well, let's get some billboards in different areas. So we saw it in Atlanta. There was I think a tweet that had some legs on it earlier in the season during the conference media days that was in Charlotte, of billboards out there saying, hey, here we are, we're Cal, and we're coming. So I think as we go to opponents, they're buying up that inventory and making sure that everybody's aware who Cal is. It's kind of been fun.
I like it. All right, that's it's a little tongue in cheek, but so much of this is silly now with the conference alignments and who's with who. Why not introduce yourself? And I think it ties into the social media presence of Cal and their fans right now. What is the Calgorithm? Can you explain what is going on with one of maybe the more enjoyable social media things out there?
If I misspeak, I'm going to get grilled by the Calgorithm. So, in a nutshell, it is a group of, and I'm still learning this. This is my second year at Cal, so I'm still learning all of the burner accounts that Cal has. And there's a lot of them. And I know every fan base has their share of burner accounts, but there are hundreds of burner accounts that really put a lot of content out. And they're using AI in a big way to make graphics and to make different posts. And it really started against Auburn when Cal was going down to SEC country, and there was a lot of back and forth between those fan bases, and then Cal won, and that grew some legs, and more burners started to be made, and we were off and running. And then when game day came for Miami, it was at its peak. So Calgorithm will take over from time to time, and you can go scrolling through X or through Instagram and see just a bunch of random posts that are quite entertaining, and now they're starting to bring in different fan bases too, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a reply I got the other day. I tweeted something, or we put out a clip of something where I was wondering how the heck is this an 8.5 point spread on Saturday, and I got an immediate reply that it was like it's because of the Calgorithm. Like, well, All right, I can't argue with that. That's as great as a good as answer as I can come up with, right? For Saturday.
Look, we'll take the attention. This is a Cal team that in this year they wanted to try and make their name, and it's a team that knew how important this season was from a perspective of trying to win some football games. So they'll take the attention. They'll take all the hype, and it's certainly been an interesting season and a unique one in that regard.
Yeah, just take us on the field here as Justin Allegri is with us. I know when we talked in the summer here, well in advance of this game, all right, who do we watch out for? The name on the tip of everyone's tongue was Jaden Ott in the summer, and that was kind of the player being pushed and the leading returner and all that. I know he's been banged up throughout the season. He's not had the year as expected. So I guess, A, where is he at right now? And B, how is it filled in around him in the absence of what was expected this year?
Yeah, so Jaden Ott, the Pac-12's leading rusher last season, went down in the first game of the year against UC Davis. And it was kind of this weird injury where he got tied up. He was in a pile, and you didn't know the extent of the injury. And he was working through it, tried to get back, played a little bit at Auburn, which was the road game for the Bears, but just couldn't get right. And so missed some time and came back in that Miami game and made an impact play with his legs on a fourth down. But then really hasn't had a ton of just huge plays like we saw Jaden last year. And when he's right, I mean, he's the fastest guy on the field, and he can really do things with his legs. The other side of that is the offensive line has not been consistent this year for California. There have been a lot of changes in the starting five in that front, including last week we saw a different combination of five in that start against Wake Forest. So there hasn't been that consistency for him to hit the holes and get going. He's back and healthy now, which is a good thing to see. He played a good amount of snaps against Wake Forest. And to go to your point about who have they gone to in his place, well, Javian Thomas was a guy that got injured last year, and some say he's even faster than Jaden. So, but he's more of that guy that gets to the edge and not as much in between the tackles and won't absorb as much contact. But that's the primary back that they've gone to with Jaden being out.
Yeah, and then you see the quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. Man, at least on Friday night, he was slinging it all over the lot. What kind of season does he have?
Yeah, he's a guy that's only in his teens for starts as a collegiate player. He was third on the depth chart to begin the season last year and earned a starting role and kept it throughout the spring and then fall, even though that the Rodgers was brought in from North Texas to be the backup quarterback. But he has grown just tremendously in the way that he handles the offense. And you see the completion percentage and you see the amount of times that he throws, and you kind of say, well, gosh, that's a high completion percentage, and it's a lot of tosses that he's been making. But the last 3 games for him has really been an elevated step up because he's seeing the field more. He's taking more quality reps, and he's not making poor decisions. He's not turning it over. And now that he's got more weapons, there was 11 different receivers that caught a pass last week against Wake Forest. So if you give a guy that can hit targets like Fernando can, that many options and that many different players that a team has to prep for and get ready for, it makes it all the more challenging. So to me, it's just maturity from Fernando, and that's pure and simple. He's a guy that is getting better every snap he takes.
On the defensive side, the main thing that obviously stands out is leading the country in interceptions. I mean, 17. Noel Williams has been fantastic with 7. Was talking with Kyle McCord yesterday about the idea, like how careful do you have to be against this group? How careful do opposing quarterbacks have to be against this group?
Well, it's an active group and a very veteran-laden secondary. And we talk about Noel. 7 interceptions is very, very impressive. And some people kind of look at that.
Crazy.
They look at that and say, well, maybe he got lucky on a few. And there's just sure. But for the most part, he has been able to read the quarterback's eyes tremendously well this season. It was something he worked on in the offseason. And to complement that, the other interceptions, it's not just the guys in the secondary. I think there's been 4 tipped ball interceptions this year too, which you kind of look at it and say, well, gosh, that's just the way the ball bounces. But no, guys at the defensive line are getting their hands on it and developing those opportunities. So it kind of goes hand in hand. So it's been a really impressive year for this defensive group, and it's getting better too with the pressure in the last couple of games they've been able to put on the quarterback to force that issue and get him out of the pocket. But the interception numbers, I mean, they're remarkable this year. They really are.
Well, if I know anything about both Syracuse and Cal games this year, Justin, something crazy is going to happen with about a minute to go in the fourth quarter. I don't really see any way around it, I guess, this week.
We brought Pac-12 After Dark to the ACC, and I hope you guys enjoy it. And I know this is a day game, but it can rear its ugly head at any moment.
Yeah, I for one am shocked. I was spending all year long getting ready to do like a post-game show at 2:30 in the morning. I was certain this was going to be like a Pac-12 After Dark special. So I'm as shocked as anyone. This is a West Coast nooner, but I'm sure it'll have a little of that flavor. All right, man. Thanks so much for joining us. Safe travels wherever you're going here all over the lot in the next few weeks, and enjoy the basketball tonight. But thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, appreciate it. I'll figure out what time zone I am later today.
Yeah, you don't need to know what time it is. That's not important. That's not important. All right, there he goes. Our guy Justin Allegri, the voice of the Cal Bears. He's in Nashville for basketball tonight against Vandy. He'll be headed back out west after the game.